The signals came from the third planet of a yellow star, weak and scattered like the dying whispers of a primitive race. Commander Zeth Cole stood before the massive viewing screen of the Zephyrian research vessel, watching the data streams flow across holographic displays. The alien transmissions were crude, filled with strange sounds and moving pictures that showed soft-bodied creatures walking on two legs. "Another primitive world," Zeth Cole said to his science officer. "Look at them. They still use chemical combustion. For power, their cities burn fossil fuels. They fight each other with metal projectiles." The science officer, a thin Zephyrian with purple skin and 4 arms, nodded as he studied the intercepted broadcasts. "Yes, Commander. Our analysis shows they have barely mastered nuclear fission. They call themselves humans. Their planet is called Earth." Zeth Cole laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. The Zephyrian collective had conquered 47 worlds. In the past century, each time it became easier. Most species surrendered when they saw the power of Zephyrian technology. Those who resisted were quickly crushed by energy weapons that could melt mountains and ships that moved faster than light. "Send word to Admiral Kethvar," Zeth Cole ordered. "Tell him we have found another resource world. The inhabitants are weak. This will be a simple harvest." 3 days later, Admiral Kethvar received the report aboard his flagship, the Crimson Talon. The massive vessel floated in the void between stars, its hull gleaming with energy shields and weapon arrays. Kethvar was old for a Zephyrian, his purple skin marked with the scars of many battles. He had led the conquest of 15 worlds and had never lost a ship. "Humans," he said, reading the report, "show me their military capabilities." His tactical officer activated the holographic display. Images of human warships appeared, crude metal vessels that moved with bright flames shooting from their backs. The ships looked like flying metal boxes, covered with strange bumps and antenna arrays. "Primitive fusion drives," the tactical officer explained. "Their largest vessels are only 300 meters long. They use kinetic projectiles and simple explosive warheads. No energy shields, no plasma weapons. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours." Kethvar studied the human ships with interest. They looked different from other primitive vessels he had seen. Most species built their ships to look beautiful or frightening. These human ships looked purely functional, like tools designed for a specific job. Every surface seemed to serve a purpose. "How many ships do they have?" Kethvar asked. "Our long-range scans show approximately 200 vessels in their primary fleet. Most are small patrol craft. They appear to be concentrated around their home world and a large satellite they call the Moon." Kethvar nodded. 200 primitive ships against the might of the Zephyrian collective. It would not even be a real battle. "Prepare the pacification fleet," he ordered. 12 vessels should be more than enough. We will follow standard protocol. Show them our power, demand surrender, then begin the harvest. The pacification fleet assembled near the edge of human space 2 weeks later. 12 Zephyrian warships hung in the darkness, their hulls pulsing with contained energy. Each ship was over 500 meters long, armed with plasma cannons that could burn through any known armor. Their energy shields could deflect missiles and absorb the force of nuclear explosions. Aboard the lead ship, Captain Vel Thanis prepared the surrender broadcast. She was young for a ship captain, her purple skin still smooth and unmarked by battle scars. This was her first command, and she expected it to be easy. "The translation matrix is ready," her communications officer reported. "We have analyzed their languages and prepared the demand in their primary dialects." "Excellent," Velthatis said. "Open a channel to all human receivers when we enter their system." The fleet engaged their hyperdrive engines and vanished from normal space. They reappeared moments later, near the edge of the human solar system, their ships glowing with residual energy from the faster-than-light jump. Immediately, alarms began sounding on human monitoring stations throughout the system. On Luna Base, Commander Sarah Chun watched her screens light up with contact signatures, unlike anything in the human database. 12 contacts, bearing 27 Mark IV, her sensor operator reported. Configuration unknown. Energy signatures are off the charts. Chun had been expecting this day for 20 years. Deep space monitoring had detected signs of alien civilization for decades. The government had prepared for the possibility of first contact, but they had also prepared for the possibility of invasion. Send the alert to Fleet Command, Chun ordered. All units to battle stations. Implement Contact Protocol 7. Throughout the solar system, human ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind planetary bodies began to move. What the aliens saw as a primitive fleet of 200 ships was actually a carefully maintained deception. The real human fleet was much larger and much better hidden. The Zephyrian ships moved slowly toward Earth, their hulls gleaming with power. Captain Velthanis stood on her bridge, confident and calm. In a few hours, this primitive species would surrender, and she would return home as a hero. Begin the broadcast, she ordered. Across Earth, every radio and television receiver crackled to life with an alien voice speaking broken English, Chinese, Spanish, and Arabic. Attention primitive. Humans of Earth, you are now subjects of the Zephyrian Collective. Your resistance is futile. Your technology is inferior. Surrender now, and you will be treated with mercy. Continue to resist, and your cities will burn. You have one of your hours to respond. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Martinez listened to the alien message with his military advisors. General Harrison, head of Space Command, studied the tactical displays showing the approaching alien fleet. "Ma'am, our deep space assets are in position," Harrison reported. "The enemy has no idea what they're walking into." "How confident are you, General?" President Martinez asked. Harrison smiled grimly. "Ma'am, they think we're primitives throwing rocks. They're about to learn that humans throw rocks very, very hard." Captain Velthanis waited exactly one human hour for a response. When none came, she gave the order to advance. The 12 Zephyrian ships accelerated toward Earth, their weapons beginning to charge with deadly energy. "Scan for their military vessels," Velthanis ordered. "We will destroy a few of their primitive ships to demonstrate our power. That should convince them to surrender." Her sensor officer studied his displays, frowning. "Captain, I am detecting multiple contacts throughout the system. More than our initial estimates suggested." "How many more?" Velthanis asked. "At least 400 vessels, Captain. Possibly more. They appear to be moving to intercept us." Velthanis felt the first touch of uncertainty. 400 ships was more than expected, but they were still primitive. Zephyrian energy shields could deflect any weapon these humans might possess. "Maintain course," she ordered. "Prepare to demonstrate the power of the collective." The alien ships continued their approach toward Earth, unaware that they were flying into the most carefully prepared trap in human history. Behind asteroids, inside hollowed-out moons, and hidden in the shadows of planets, the real human fleet waited with weapons that would soon teach the Zephyrian Collective a lesson they would never forget. The age of human isolation was about to end, but not in the way the aliens expected. The first human ship appeared on Zephyrian sensors as the alien fleet passed the orbit of Mars. Captain Velthanis studied the contact with growing confusion. The vessel was massive, nearly as large as her own flagship, but it looked nothing like the primitive ships they had observed from long range. "That cannot be correct," she said to her sensor operator. "Check your readings again." The sensor operator, a nervous young Zephyrian named Cole Wyss, ran the scans a second time. Captain, the readings are accurate. The vessel is 450 meters long. Hull composition appears to be layered metal alloys with some kind of reactive plating. Energy signatures are much higher than our previous estimates. Valthalis felt a cold touch of worry in her stomach. Show me the visual. The main screen flickered and displayed the human ship. It was ugly by Zephyrian standards, a blocky gray vessel covered with weapon turrets and sensor arrays. Strange markings covered its hull, and bright letters spelled out UEF Valkyrie across its bow. It looks like a flying fortress. Her tactical officer observed Dot before Valthanis could respond. More contacts began appearing on the sensors. Ships emerged from behind asteroids, from the shadow of Mars, and from positions the Zephyrians had never thought to scan. Within minutes, over 100 human vessels surrounded the alien fleet. Captain, Cole Wyss said, his voice shaking, we are surrounded. One count 137 human ships. They were hiding. Valthanis stared at the tactical display. In shock, the humans had been waiting for them. This was not the behavior of a primitive species. This was the behavior of warriors who understood strategy and patience. All ships raise shields to maximum, she ordered through the fleet communication. System, prepare for possible engagement. Aboard the UEF Valkyrie, Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge watching the alien ships on her display screens. She had trained for this moment her entire career. The human fleet had been preparing for first contact with hostile aliens for 30 years, ever since deep space telescopes had detected signs of an interstellar civilization. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel, her communications officer reported. Put it through, Sean ordered. The alien voice crackled through the speakers, speaking broken English with an arrogant tone. Human vessels, you are outmatched. Our technology is superior. Withdraw now, and we will show mercy. Chun activated her own transmitter and broadcast on all frequencies. Alien vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earth Forces. You have entered our solar system with hostile intent. You have threatened our world and our people. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. There was a long pause before the alien captain responded. You dare to threaten us? We are the Zephyrian Collective. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships. Sean smiled coldly. Let me show you how primitive our weapons are. All ships, prepare to fire. Target. Their lead vessel. Throughout the human fleet, massive railgun batteries began to charge. These were not the primitive chemical weapons the aliens expected. Human engineers had spent decades perfecting magnetic acceleration technology, creating weapons that could fire metal slugs at significant fractions of light speed. Fire, Sean ordered. The Valkyrie's main railgun discharged with a flash of electromagnetic energy. A tungsten slug weighing 50 kilograms accelerated to 30,000 kilometers per second in less than a millisecond. The projectile crossed the space between ships faster than Zephyrian sensors could track. The slug struck Valthanis' flagship directly amidships. The alien energy shields, designed to deflect plasma bolts and energy beams, offered no resistance to solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten penetrator punched through the shield matrix as if it did not exist, then tore through the ship's hull like tissue paper. Valthanis was thrown from her feet as her ship shuddered under the impact. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel, as atmosphere vented from a hole 3 meters wide. Emergency force fields snapped into place, but the damage was already done. Report. Valthanis shouted over the noise. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. Her damage control officer reported. We have lost primary power to the starboard weapon arrays. 17 crew members are dead. Velthanis stared at her screens in disbelief. One shot from a human weapon had crippled her flagship. These were not the primitive projectiles her intelligence reports had described. These were weapons of devastating power. All ships return fire. She ordered, destroy the human vessels. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with their plasma cannons. Bright beams of superheated gas lanced across space toward the human ships. The energy weapons that had melted the armor of dozens of alien species struck the human vessels with tremendous force. But the humans had not built their ships like other species. Where most races used lightweight materials and relied on energy shields for protection, humans had built their vessels like the battleships of ancient Earth. Layers of composite armor, reactive plating, and internal compartmentalization absorbed and redirected the alien plasma beams. The UEF Valkyrie took a direct hit from 3 plasma cannons. Her hull glowed white-hot where the energy struck, but the armor held. Automatic systems sprayed coolant across the heated sections, while damage control teams rushed to repair any breaches. Damage report, Chun called out. Armor plating melted. On sections 4 and 7, her engineer reported. Hull integrity is at 85%. All weapon systems operational. Chun nodded grimly. The alien weapons were powerful, but human engineering had prepared for this. Every human warship was built to take punishment and keep fighting. Target the second alien vessel, she ordered. All ships, concentrate fire. More railgun slugs flashed across space. The second Zephyrian ship tried to maneuver away from the incoming projectiles, but the tungsten rounds moved too fast to dodge. Multiple hits tore through the alien vessel's hull, sending it spinning out of control. Captain Velthanis watched in horror as her fleet began to take devastating losses. The humans were using tactics she had never seen before. Instead of elegant energy weapons, they threw chunks of metal at incredible speeds. Instead of graceful maneuvering, they built their ships to absorb damage and keep fighting. Captain, we are receiving tactical data from our remaining ships, Colwys reported. The human weapons appear to be magnetic acceleration devices. They are firing solid projectiles at approximately 10% of light speed. That is impossible. Velthanis said, no primitive species should have such technology. But the evidence was all around her. Her proud fleet was being torn apart by weapons that should not exist. The humans had somehow developed devastating, kinetic weapons while maintaining the appearance of a primitive civilization. More human ships appeared from hidden positions throughout the asteroid belt. Chung realized that the aliens had fallen into a carefully prepared trap. Humanity had been watching the stars for decades, waiting for this moment. They had hidden their most advanced ships and weapons, allowing the aliens to see only what they wanted them to see. Captain, 3 more alien ships have been disabled, her tactical officer reported. The enemy fleet is in retreat. Chun watched. As the surviving Zephyrian vessels began to withdraw, their formation broken and their confidence shattered. But she knew this was only the beginning. When these aliens returned home, they would bring a much larger fleet. Let them go, she ordered. But track their heading. We need to know where they came from. As the battered Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, Captain Velthanis sat in her damaged command chair, trying to understand what had happened. Her species had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced anything like humanity. These humans were not primitives. They were warriors who understood the value of deception and preparation. They had lured the Zephyrian fleet into a trap and then destroyed it with weapons that defied everything the collective thought they knew about primitive technology. Send a message to Admiral Kethvar, she ordered quietly. Tell him we have made a terrible mistake. These humans are not what they appear to be. Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center aboard the Crimson Talon, staring at the emergency transmission from Captain Velthanis. The holographic image of the young captain showed burn marks on her purple skin and damage all around her bridge. "Admiral, the humans are not primitives," Val Thanis said, her voice shaking. "They have weapons we cannot defend against. They destroyed 7 of our ships. We barely escaped." Cathvar felt his blood turn cold. In 200 years of conquest, the Zephyrian collective had never lost 7 ships in a single battle. The humans were supposed to be weak, helpless creatures with crude technology. "Show me the battle recordings," he ordered. The hologram changed to show the human attack. Cathvar watched in silence as the primitive-looking human ships fired invisible weapons that tore through. Zephyrian shields like. They were nothing. He saw his proud warships spinning out of control, venting atmosphere and crew into space. "They were waiting for us," Vel Thanis continued. "Hidden ships appeared from everywhere. Their weapons fire solid metal at impossible speeds. Our shields cannot stop them." Cathvar turned off the transmission and called his war council. Within an hour, the most experienced military leaders of the collective gathered in the strategy chamber. These were Zephyrians who had conquered worlds and crushed rebellions across the galaxy. "The humans have made fools of us," Cathvar announced. "They allowed us to see weakness while hiding strength. Now we must decide how to respond." "General," Thax Cole, leader of the assault forces, slammed his fist on the table. "We cannot let this insult stand. The other member races will hear of this defeat. They will think the collective has grown weak. Then, what do you suggest?" Cathvar asked. "Full invasion," Thaxcall declared. "Send 500 ships. Orbital bombardment. Ground assault. Show these humans what happens when they resist the collective." Cathvar considered this. 500 ships was a massive force, enough to conquer most civilizations. But something about the human tactics worried him. They had shown patience, intelligence, and weapons far beyond what should be possible for their technology level. "Very well," he decided. "Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will. Show these humans the true power of the Zephyrian collective." Back in the human solar system, Captain Sarah Chun stood in the war room of Luna Base, studying intelligence reports with her fellow commanders. The alien retreat had given humanity time to analyze the enemy technology and prepare for the next attack. "Their energy weapons are powerful but focused," reported Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the fleet's chief scientist. "They're designed to punch through energy shields and light armor. But our composite steel and reactive plating disperses the heat effectively." Commander Marcus Torres, leader of the boarding specialists, added his own observations. "Their ships are built for speed and firepower, not durability. Beautiful engineering, but they sacrifice toughness for elegance." Chun nodded. "And their tactics?" "Formal," said Colonel David Kim, the tactical analyst. "They fight like they're in a parade. Clean formations, predictable patterns. They've never faced an enemy that fights dirty." "Then we'll teach them about dirty fighting," Chun said grimly. 2 weeks later, the Zephyrian Grand Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 500 gleaming warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls pulsing with contained energy. It was the largest military force the collective had ever assembled. Admiral Cathvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this time would be different. No primitive species could stand against 500 advanced warships. "Begin the advance," he ordered. "Maintain battle formation. Prepare for orbital bombardment of the human home world." But as the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, human sensors tracked their every movement. Hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt and on the moons of Jupiter began activating weapon systems that had been secretly built over decades. "They're coming in the same way," Shin observed from the bridge of the Valkyrie. "Same formation, same approach vector. They haven't learned anything." Contact from Fleet Command, her communications officer reported. All ships are in position. Operation Hammer is ready to execute. Chon smiled coldly. Operation Hammer was humanity's response to a large-scale invasion. Instead of meeting the aliens in open battle, the human fleet would use their knowledge of the solar system against them. Execute Hammer, she ordered. Throughout the solar system, human ships began to move. But instead of forming neat battle lines like the aliens expected, they swarmed like angry hornets. Fast attack craft emerged from asteroid hideouts. Heavy cruisers dropped out of the shadow of gas giant moons. Even civilian mining ships had been armed with railguns and missile launchers. The Zephyrian formation suddenly found itself under attack from all directions. Human ships that had been pretending to be space debris came to life and opened fire. Mining platforms that should have been harmless revealed hidden weapon batteries. "We are under attack from all vectors," shouted the tactical officer aboard Kethvar's flagship. Contacts appearing throughout the system. "Impossible," Kethvar said. "How many ships do they have?" "I count over 800 human vessels." "Admiral, they're everywhere." Kethvar stared at the tactical display in shock. 800 ships. The humans had been building a massive fleet while pretending to be primitives. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. The human attack came in waves, each one more savage than the last. Fast attack craft buzzed around the alien formation like metal wasps, firing railgun bursts and then disappearing behind asteroids. Heavy cruisers appeared at maximum weapon range, fired devastating salvos, and then retreated before the aliens could respond. But the most shocking moment came when Commander Torres led his boarding attack against a Zephyrian battlecruiser. Human assault shuttles, ugly and heavily armored, smashed through the alien ship's hangar bay shields. Instead of the elegant energy weapons the Zephyrians expected, the human marines carried projectile weapons that fired explosive rounds. The aliens had never experienced close combat like this. Their own soldiers fought with plasma rifles and energy swords in formal duels. The humans fought like wild animals, using grenades, flamethrowers, and even knives when their guns ran empty. Torres himself crashed through the bridge door of the alien ship carrying an assault rifle in one hand and a combat knife in the other. The Zephyrian captain, elegant in his ceremonial armor, tried to challenge the human to single combat according to the ancient rules of war. Torres shot him twice in the chest and kept moving. Within 30 minutes, the human marines had captured the entire ship. The surviving Zephyrian crew found themselves prisoners of creatures who fought without honor, without rules, and without mercy. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Zephyrian fleet, designed for elegant space combat between civilized species, found itself being torn apart by humans who used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. Human ships deliberately rammed alien vessels when their weapons ran out of ammunition. Damaged human cruisers were turned into guided missiles, their crews evacuating at the last second before impact. Mining ships dropped loads of metal ore like bombs, using simple gravity to turn cargo into weapons. "Admiral, we have lost 147 ships," reported Kethvar's tactical officer. "The humans are using their entire solar system as a weapon. We cannot maintain this assault." Kethvar watched another of his beautiful warships die as a human heavy cruiser rammed it at full speed. The human ship was destroyed in the collision, but it took the Zephyrian vessel with it. These humans fought like they cared more about winning than surviving. "Retreat," he ordered quietly. "Signal all ships to withdraw." "Admiral, the High Council will not accept another defeat," his political officer warned. "Then the High Council can come here and fight these demons themselves," Kethvar replied. "I will not sacrifice more ships to creatures who fight like this." As the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away from the solar system, Captain Chun watched from the bridge of Valkyrie. Her ship was damaged and her crew was exhausted, but they had won. The aliens had learned that humans could build weapons out of anything and turn every piece of space debris into a potential threat. But she knew this was still not over. The aliens would be back, and next time they would be ready for human tactics. The real war was just beginning. The news of the second defeat spread through Zephyrian space like wildfire. On the capital world of Zephyr Prime, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The massive chamber buzzed with angry voices as reports came in from the battle. 500 ships, declared Councillor Nethkal, his 4 arms waving in outrage. Admiral Kethvar lost 500 of our finest vessels to a species that should be throwing rocks. High Councillor Vextanis, oldest and most respected of the Zephyrian leaders, studied the battle reports with growing concern. The humans had not just won through luck or surprise. They had shown tactical thinking that worried him deeply. "These humans are not what we believed," he said quietly. "They have turned their entire star system into a fortress. They fight with weapons we do not understand and tactics that defy military logic." "Then we send everything," snarled General Thaxcole. "Every ship in the collective fleet. We will turn their world into glass and ash." "With what ships?" asked Councillor Lethvan. "We have lost over 600 vessels to these humans. Our fleet strength is reduced by 30%. The other member races are beginning to ask questions." This was the real danger, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The Zephyrian collective ruled over dozens of alien species through fear and superior technology. If those races learned that humans had defeated the collective twice, rebellions would break out across the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the human solar system, engineers and scientists worked around the clock to study captured alien technology. In the research facilities of Luna Base, Dr. Jennifer Walsh led a team examining the wreckage of Zephyrian ships. "Their energy shielding is fascinating," she explained to a group of military leaders. "It creates a field that can deflect plasma and energy weapons, but it's completely useless against solid matter." General Harrison, head of Space Command, studied the alien technology with interest. "Can we reproduce it?" "Better," Dr. Walsh smiled. "We can improve it. Their shields are designed to be efficient and elegant. We can make them redundant and powerful." This was the human way. Where other species built technology to be beautiful or efficient, humans built it to work under the worst possible conditions. Human engineers took the elegant alien shield generators and surrounded them with backup systems, alternative power sources, and manual overrides. 6 months after the battle, the first human ships equipped with hybrid technology began their trials. The UEF Titan was a new class of battleship that combined alien energy shields with human engineering principles. Where a Zephyrian ship might have 1 shield generator, the Titan had 12. Where alien ships relied on computer control, human ships could be operated manually if all electronics failed. Captain Chun stood on the bridge of the new UEF Olympus, watching the test results with satisfaction. The ship's shields could absorb energy weapons that would have destroyed any Zephyrian vessel, while its railguns could punch through alien defenses with ease. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from Deep Space Monitoring," her communications officer reported. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive alien fleet approaching. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Chun felt her stomach tighten. The aliens were coming back, and this time they would be prepared for human tactics. "How many ships?" she asked. "Preliminary count shows over 1,000 vessels, ma'am. It appears to be the entire Zephyrian fleet. The final battle was about to begin. 2,000 light-years away, Admiral Kethvar commanded the largest fleet in Zephyrian history. 1,050 ships stretched across space in a formation so vast it took hours for signals to travel from one end to the other. The High Council had given him one simple order: destroy the humans completely. But Cathvar had studied the human tactics carefully. These creatures did not fight like civilized beings. They used deception, surprise, and weapons that turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. He would not underestimate them again. All ships maintain defensive formations, he ordered. Deploy sensor drones ahead of the fleet. I want to know about every piece of debris in that system before we arrive. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the very edge of the solar system, far from where the humans had set their previous traps. Cathvar expected the humans to swarm out from their hiding places, but the attack never came. Instead, a single human ship appeared on his sensors. It was massive, easily the largest vessel he had ever seen. The ship was over 1 kilometer long and bristled with weapon turrets. Strange markings covered its hull, and bright letters spelled out UEF Ragnarok. One ship? Asked his tactical officer. In confusion. Admiral, our sensors show only one human vessel. Cathvar frowned. After all their victories, the humans were sending a single ship against his entire fleet? It made no sense. Unless ... It's a trap, he realized. Scan for hidden vessels. Full spectrum analysis. But the scans showed nothing. Somehow, impossibly, the humans were sending one ship to face over 1,000. Aboard the UEF Ragnarok, Admiral. Rebecca Stone prepared for the most important battle in human history. The massive ship was humanity's masterpiece, combining everything they had learned from studying alien technology with human engineering principles. All systems green, reported her chief engineer. Hybrid shields are at maximum power. All weapon. Batteries are loaded and ready. Stone studied the tactical display, showing the approaching alien fleet. 1,000 ships against one. The odds would have been impossible for any other species, but humans had always specialized in impossible odds. Open a channel to the alien fleet, she ordered. Channel open, Admiral. Stone's voice carried across space to the Zephyrian flagship. Alien vessels, this is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the United Earth Forces. You have invaded our space twice and threatened our world. This ends now. Cathvar responded immediately. Human Commander, you face the entire might of the Zephyrian Collective. One ship cannot stand against 1,000. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death. Stone smiled coldly. You still don't understand what you're facing. We are humans. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. And we never, ever give up. She turned to her weapons officer. Fire everything. The UEF Ragnarok unleashed hell. Dozens of railgun turrets fired in sequence, sending tungsten slugs screaming across space at relativistic speeds. Missile launchers opened their doors and released clouds of nuclear-tipped warheads. Energy weapons powered by hybrid alien-human. Technology lanced out like spears of light, but the most devastating weapons were the ones the aliens never saw coming. Hidden throughout the asteroids and moons of the outer system, massive magnetic accelerators had been built over the past months. These planetary-scale railguns fired projectiles, the size of small buildings at speeds that defied physics. The first salvo struck the Zephyrian, fleet like the hammer of an angry god. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles simply ceased to exist as house-sized tungsten blocks, moving at 30% of light speed, tore through their formations. Impossible, screamed Cathvar's tactical officer. The entire asteroid belt is firing at us. Cathvar watched in horror as his beautiful fleet was torn apart by weapons mounted on asteroids, moons, and hidden platforms throughout the system. The humans had not just built a few ships. They had turned every piece of rock in their solar system into a weapon. The battle lasted only minutes. When the firing stopped, less than 200 Zephyrian ships remained intact. The rest were spreading. clouds of debris and vapor. Kethvar's flagship was badly damaged, its elegant hull scarred and burned. "Admiral, we must retreat," his political officer pleaded. "The fleet is destroyed." But Kethvar could not look away from the human ship. The UEF Ragnarok sat in space. Like a metal mountain, its weapons still trained on the survivors. These humans had built weapons that could destroy fleets. They had turned their entire star system into a fortress that could hold off the galaxy. "Send a message to the High Council," he said quietly. "Tell them we surrender." The words felt like poison in his mouth, but Kethvar was a military officer. He knew when a war was lost. The humans had not just defeated the Zephyrian fleet. They had broken it so completely that the collective would never recover. On the bridge of the Ragnarok, Admiral Stone watched the alien ships begin their retreat. She felt no joy in the victory. Too many good people had died to reach this moment. But humanity was safe, and that was what mattered. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender broadcasts from the alien fleet," her communications officer reported. "Accept their surrender," Stone ordered, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them the war is over. We won." 3 months after the great defeat, Admiral Kethvar sat in a medical chair aboard a Zephyrian hospital ship. His left arm had been torn off during the boarding action by Commander Torres, and his right leg was gone from the knee down, lost. When a human railgun slug had torn through his flagship's bridge, the mechanical replacements worked well enough, but they reminded him every day of what the humans had done to his proud fleet. More than the physical pain, though, was the knowledge that he had led the greatest military disaster in Zephyrian history. "Admiral, the High Council requests your presence for the emergency session," his aide informed him. Kethvar rose slowly from his chair, testing the balance of his new leg. The trip to Zephyr Prime would take weeks, but he knew what waited for him there. Disgrace, probably execution, and the complete collapse of everything the collective had built. On Zephyr Prime, the capital city buzzed with rumors and fear. Word of the defeat had spread to every member race of the collective. Some species were already refusing to send tribute ships. Others were forming secret alliances, preparing to break away from Zephyrian rule. In the High Council chamber, the mood was darker than anything in recorded history. High Counselor Vextanus looked older than his 800 years as he read reports from across the galaxy. "The Corvin Republic has declared independence," he announced. "A stellar federation is no longer responding to our communications. 17 member worlds have stopped sending resources. It's all because of those cursed humans," snarled General Faxcole. "One primitive species has destroyed everything we built." "Primitive?" asked Counselor Neth Call. "They turned their entire solar system into a weapon. They built ships larger than our space stations. How can we call them primitive?" The debate raged for hours. Some counselors wanted to send another fleet to destroy the humans. Others suggested diplomatic contact. A few quietly mentioned that perhaps the collective should consider making peace with these terrifying creatures. When Admiral Kethvar finally arrived on Zephyr Prime, he was brought directly to the council chamber. The once proud military leader limped into the room, his mechanical limbs clicking with each step. The assembled counselors stared at him in silence. "Tell us exactly what happened," High Counselor Vextanus ordered. Kethvar stood as straight as his injuries allowed. "Honored counselors, we underestimated the humans in every possible way. They are not primitives. They are the most dangerous military force I have ever encountered." "Explain," Vextanus said. "They do not fight like civilized beings," Kethvar continued. "They have no concept of honor in battle. They will use any weapon, any tactic, any strategy to win. They turned asteroids into cannons. They rammed our ships with their own vessels. They fought like creatures possessed by demons. But surely our superior technology, double quotes, began Counselor Lethvan. They took our technology and made it better, Kethvar interrupted. In 6 months, they created ships more powerful than anything we have ever built. They studied our weaknesses and designed weapons specifically to exploit them. The chamber fell silent as the counselors absorbed this information. These humans were not just another primitive species to be conquered. They were a genuine threat to everything the collective represented. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was dealing with its own consequences of victory. The war had united the planet like nothing in human history. But now the question became what to do with their new status as a galactic power. President Martinez sat in her office, reading reports from the intelligence services. Human ships were already exploring nearby star systems, making contact with other alien species who had heard about the defeat of the Zephyrian Collective. Ma'am, we have delegations from 12 different alien governments requesting meetings, reported Secretary of State Johnson. They all want to form alliances with us. And what about the Zephyrians themselves? Martinez asked. Admiral Stone believes they're genuinely defeated. Our deep space monitors show the remaining fleets pulling back to their core worlds. They seem to be dealing with rebellions throughout their territory. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. The humans had won a great victory, but victory came with responsibilities. They were now a major power in a galaxy they barely understood. Schedule meetings with the alien delegations, she decided. But make it clear that humanity's primary concern is the protection of Earth and our people. Back on Zephyr Prime, the High Council finally reached a decision that would have been unthinkable just months before. High Counselor Vex Danis stood before the assembly and spoke words that changed galactic history. The collective will send an embassy to the humans, he announced. We will offer a formal peace treaty and an exchange of ambassadors. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Many counselors saw this as surrender, admission that the mighty collective could not defeat a single species. But Vex Danis had seen the battle reports. He understood what they were truly facing. These humans have shown us something we have never encountered before, he said when the noise died down. They fight not just with weapons, but with a fury that burns in their souls. They would rather die than submit. We cannot conquer a species that refuses to be conquered. Admiral Kethvar was chosen to lead the embassy mission, partly as punishment for his defeats, but mostly because he was the only Zephyrian who truly understood what humanity was capable of. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in the border region between human and Zephyrian space. Admiral Stone represented humanity, while Kethvar spoke for the collective. The two military leaders faced each other across a metal table, each bearing the scars of their previous encounters. Admiral Stone, Kethvar began, I come before you, not as a conqueror, but as someone who has learned to respect your people's strength. Stone studied the alien commander with interest. This was the being who had led 3 separate attacks on her solar system. But there was no arrogance left in him, only a weary understanding. What does the collective want? She asked directly. Peace, Kethvar replied simply. We offer a formal non-aggression pact. Our species will not interfere with human expansion, and we ask that you do not interfere with our remaining territory. And what about the other species you've conquered? Stone asked. The ones that are rebelling against you now. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. That is no longer your concern. The collective is ... changing. Your victories have shown our member races that we are not invincible. Many are choosing to leave. We must adapt or fall. The negotiations took weeks, but eventually a treaty was signed that established formal diplomatic relations between humanity and the Zephyrian collective. More importantly, it marked humanity's emergence as a recognized galactic power dot in the years that followed. The galaxy learned to fear and respect the humans in equal measure. Human merchant. Ships began appearing in alien ports, carrying goods and technologies that other species had never imagined. Human explorers pushed into uncharted regions of space, establishing colonies and outposts. But it was the military academies of a dozen different species that truly showed how much the galaxy had changed. In lecture halls from the Corvan Republic to the Stellar Federation, alien cadets studied recordings of the human victories against the Zephyrians. Notice how the humans used deception as a primary weapon. Professor Galtex explained to his class of young Corvan officers. They allowed the enemy to believe they were weak while secretly building an unstoppable military force. But Professor, asked one student, how do we defend against an enemy that fights without honor? By understanding that honor means nothing if your people are dead, the professor replied. The humans showed us that survival matters more than tradition. This is why they won. On Earth, the war had changed humanity as well. The planet that had once been divided by nations and conflicts was now united by the knowledge that they lived in a hostile galaxy. Human children grew up learning about alien species and the importance of staying strong in the deep space monitoring stations that ringed the solar system. Human officers kept constant watch for new threats. The Zephyrians had been defeated, but the galaxy was full of other species that might see humanity as a target. Captain Sarah Chun, now promoted to Admiral and Commander of the Outer System Defenses, stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were studying humanity, trying to understand how a single species had brought down the mighty Zephyrian collective. "Ma'am, incoming transmission from the exploration fleet," her aide reported. "Admiral? Torres says they've made contact with a species called the Hegemony. They seem friendly, but they have questions about our military capabilities." Chun smiled grimly. The galaxy was learning that humans were not to be underestimated. Some species, like the Zephyrians, had learned through painful defeat. Others would hopefully learn through diplomacy and trade, but if necessary, humanity was ready to teach the lesson again. The steel and fury that had broken the collective's power still burned in human hearts, ready to defend their world and their people against any threat the galaxy might offer. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human strength had begun.